His return is imminent. Thank you to our $5 patron, Sin is Lancelot, and a big thank you to our $25 patron, the Mr. Greed. Before I'm in this breakdown of how strong Meliodas, the King of Leonis, should be upon his long-awaited return into 4 Nights of the Apocalypse, please do me a favor and leave how strong you think he's going to be in the comment section down below. Leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, make sure to hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do have a Patreon down below, and I'd appreciate any support you're willing to give. Now, let's get into it. What's up, guys? I got a pencil here, and here we are to break down how strong King Meliodas should be. After, reasonably, since the last time he fought in canon, it's been a solid 16 years or so since he's actually thrown hands on Paige. For legitimate reason. I think he tripped Tristan once, but honestly, I'm kind of excited because notably, I do believe that Nakaba is going to take sort of the Boruto approach with it, maybe, but not to the insane degree. Like, he's going to keep our old series characters relevant, but it's very likely they'll die one day. So, I'm assuming Meliodas can be strong, but he can't be too strong. But let's talk about actually something I noticed when I was reviewing Meliodas and his power growth over the series in the last series. Meliodas usually, by the time a new threat rolls around that greatly surpasses his power, actually usually eclipses his base self by the last time he fought something. So let me explain. At the beginning of the series, and I'm doing this in chronological order, because obviously 10 years past Meliodas is stronger than beginning of series Meliodas, but in terms of not chronological order, series release order. Every time we've gotten introduced to Meliodas in the arc, the next arc after that, post his power up, he's usually strong enough to defeat his previous self in their strongest state while in base. And I know that's a massive leap, but it'd be like that when it'd be like that sometimes. And let's get into that. So beginning of series Meliodas, we know his strongest state. It is Berserk while wielding Lost Vein. Him in that state is absolutely insane. You can do multiple multipliers for it, but regardless, it's his peak state. He has his Sacred Treasure. He has his darkness being fully unleashed. He's just that dude. However, this same Meliodas would absolutely get one-tapped. I think that Meliodas would actually get vaporized if post-Druid base Meliodas punched him in the mouth. Because post-Druid base Meliodas managed to absolutely slap, dominate, body bag, whatever you want to say. Galland was destroyed by that post-Druid base Meliodas. Like, the same Galland that saw and experienced a Lost Vein wielding Berserk Meliodas and was like, it's alright. It's okay. Like, I thought you'd be stronger, dog. Not gonna lie to you. Now, hold on. Hold this spear. And then he just... But, of course, this same Galland kind of got, one person in the entire series dented Galland's face. And it was not anyone other than Meliodas. So, obviously, the gap in strength is just insane. And the thing is, this trend actually keeps up. Because, admittedly, while we don't know how base Meliodas post-resurrection scales to his 10 years past assault mode self, which apparently exists, because Nakaba made it exist, alright? But we see the strongest state we see in series release order for post-Druid Meliodas is Demon Mark. We don't actually know if he has a Berserk state, and reasonably he shouldn't, considering Berserk state was just like his body essentially trying to remember its former level of power and trying to cheat him up there by using his darkness powers. But we see the strongest version of Meliodas we see at least is Demon Mark, and that Demon Mark Meliodas would once again probably get vaporized if he got punched in the mouth by post-resurrection Meliodas. Like, base Meliodas post-resurrection comes along and goes up to Derriere and just casually plays patty cake with her and then knocks her away. Meanwhile, a Demon Mark Meliodas from the previous incarnation, while he was admittedly a little battle-worn, could do nothing of the same. The gap in strength was just that much larger after his resurrection. And once again, the trend continues going even further from there. Because the highest state we see post-resurrection assault mode Meliodas in is that's it. Assault mode post-resurrection Meliodas. It's the strongest state we see him in after he's gotten his power back, after he's been existing for a while, and returned to around his prime strength minus the love commandment. And what does a base post-purgatory Meliodas do? Oh, I know. He slaps up the Demon King. And by slap up, I literally mean slap up. And this is Zeldris stacked on top of the 10 Commandments. Meliodas, in the past, when he had Assault Mode, lost to the Supreme Deity and the Demon King, who were both at around half their power. So Meliodas being able to bully the Demon King, half of the Demon King's power plus Zelda's own power, is quite a worthy feat that puts him above his past self. His past self wasn't doing that, and his post-resurrection self, especially with no love command, wasn't doing that. So there's just this trend that every single time Meliodas gets stronger, post an arc, and when there's a new villain to take care of, he gets essentially his base state becomes his equal or usually superior, sometimes greatly superior to his previous strongest state. Now, based on this pattern of events, I know what y'all are thinking. Pencil, you don't mean to say that base King Meliodas could hypothetically be stronger than true magic Meliodas, right? And yeah, I am saying that. I don't think that would be the case, but the thing is, it easily could be, right? Because power creep is something else. But admittedly, what I will give all the previous leaps is that the leaps in power had a valid justification that I can't imagine for King Meliodas. And what are those valid justifications? So the first leap from beginning of series to post-Druid, that was literally just his power being sealed away. Beginning of series Meliodas was just simply not his real self. Not even his real self after years and years of getting soft. Like, literally just, his power was stolen by Merlin, and she was like, yeah, we ain't doing that, deuces, and stole his power away. So him getting that power back, it's a restoration to an older version of himself. Makes sense. Same thing happens with post-resurrection. After he gets his hearts rearranged, his guts rearranged, he comes back and he gets access to more of his original power, because the Demon King, essentially, that one never necessarily made sense to me, though. I'll admit, because it seems like the Demon King seems to say that his emotions are what's holding him back, but like post-purgatory Meliodas is a demon, and he has all of his emotions, but regardless, that's training. But once again, it's established that every time the Demon King eats Meliodas' emotions, he reverts back to his old self. He essentially removes years off of his development, and that gives him access to earlier stages of his power. And of course, Assault Mode, or at least the one that we see, is it's like a weird fusion combination. Like, half of it is Meliodas accessing a pseudo-berserk state and going into Assault Mode, because his body's closer to that state than it was. But apparently also the Demon King ate his emotions at that point, I suppose. Like, I'm not exactly sure how that one happened. Like, unless I'm missing something, Meliodas didn't die there. He just got angry. But I guess the Demon King managed to go for a good old munchin and then sent Meliodas off into purgatory. So that leap once again makes sense. And of course, his body is doing the adaptation thing where it's remembering how strong it was, and that's why post-resurrection Meliodas, while he's in Assault Mode, just keeps getting stronger and stronger and stronger, just passively as time goes by. Like, that's literally just what he's doing. It's not something he's even conscientiously doing. It's just his body being like, hey, you know, I used to grip this hard. Why don't I do that anymore? And then it fixes that problem. So there's that. And then finally, obviously, the main reason I think the 16-year gap won't be enough to push Meliodas past, heck, maybe even his Assault Mode self, EOS, is because the circumstances to where a base Meliodas surpassed his post-resurrection Assault Mode self were very specific. He spent years, he spent bare minimum, I forget what the exact amount is, but he spent 60 years fighting with the Demon King. That was essentially a whole training session. That's all that man was doing. He was literally sparring. And we know, apparently, for some reason, I don't know why it does this, but post-purgatory Meliodas' body data essentially copies over to his real self. And you can tell this because when Meliodas pops out after Bond punches him really, really hard, it isn't like a shirtless, probably darn near pantsless Meliodas that went into the cocoon. It's Purgatory Meliodas. So essentially, the original Meliodas body kind of just vanished and got replaced with a stronger body. But that was a body that got 60 years of training with the Demon King and Bond and Wild, all relative people. And on top of that, a whole bunch of existence just in Purgatory itself on top of that. We don't know how many, I mean, we do know. I think it's like only 1,000. I'm pretty sure it's only 1,000 years. I remember being corrected to something around 1,000 years. So that's a long time to train in a very, like, weirdly training suited environment. It was the hyperbolic time chamber, essentially, for both Bond and Meliodas. So unless Meliodas is making regular trips to purgatory and risking his now 1,000-year lifespan, I don't think he could be that strong. Or like, at least I can't think of a reasonable excuse unless Nakaba goes down a route that I'm kind of torn on. I mean, you could make it work. You could do this thing where Meliodas' body remembers how strong it was, and Meliodas, now knowing that he needs to take care of Arthur, in case Arthur ever goes rogue like he's doing right now, he needs to essentially achieve his true magic level of power, even if he can't enter the true magic state and have all its properties. Because we've seen the history. Meliodas' body, his darkness, his internal structure does remember how strong he's been. That's how his body restores itself most of the time. Because notably, Meliodas, throughout the entire series, until he goes into purgatory, is essentially just getting back to his old strength. So considering his body, his biological data has experienced, this sounds so weird, it's like I'm talking about like replica data in Kingdom Hearts or something like that, but his biological data should remember the power level of true magic state. So hypothetically, Meliodas, with that goal in mind and in body, could possibly train himself to that point and then beyond it. Because it's just, it's a necessity, right? Because Meliodas would not be considered a threat. Leonis, essentially, let's be real, would not be considered a threat to Arthur unless Meliodas had access to some of that special sauce. You know what I'm saying? Like, nothing. If Arthur could do it, right? If Arthur could pop up and just wipe Leonis, he would. He really would. We've seen that in the narrative. Arthur's entire goal is to destroy Leonis. He wants to get rid of the vision. He wants to get rid of Leonis. He wants to do all that. And the only logical person standing in his way, the only reason Arthur himself, well, who knows? We've been talking about the fact that he could be sealed somewhere. Camelot may be reliant on him being in there. There's so many other factors that could hypothetically go into it. But obviously, one of the main reasons he hasn't just dropped the full-on invasion on a Leonis like he kind of did at the beginning of Season 1, or at the end of Season 1, is likely due to the fact that there's a mitigating factor there. But this isn't just your regular old baby Chaos Arthur. This is Chaos Arthur with 16 years of Chaos Magic training. Like the man's been swole for a minute now. He should have at least mid-level mastery of that power. Obviously he does. He's creating entire worlds, just possibly he's essentially ripping holes in time-space and just popping out dimensions or spaces. Let me not get overly specific before y'all be like, he's popping out time space? Nah. But so Meliodas would have to be that mitigating factor, right? Because it's not going to be Elizabeth. No offense to her, but I don't think she's that viable of a threat that Arthur will be like, whoa, Nelly there. I don't want smoke. But Meliodas, a person who's already was established to have insane potential, right? Like Meliodas, the whole narrative behind Meliodas up to this point, especially in the original series, is the idea that Meliodas is a monster of monsters. Like Zeldris never surpassed his father. Like that's even established. Who knows? Maybe he has by now. Maybe his body also remembered the bio data of being the Demon King, stuff like that. He could surpass him. But even in Cursed by Light, it's clearly established that Zeldris couldn't have done what he did to the Supreme Deity on his own. And I mean just Meliodas being there. And on top of that, Zeldris got an amp, according to the light novel. So Zeldris isn't that insane genetic freak, despite him being super powerful as a demon prince. Meanwhile, Meliodas' whole narrative was that this man's just a monster. He's a demon of demons, a different level, the most powerful and most wicked, with insane levels of potential. He was just that dude. So it would make sense for the narrative to keep him, if only him, because reasonably you could have everyone catch up. Like, he could easily be stronger than his true magic self just because plot. But if you wanted to make a decent excuse behind why he would be on the same level as his true magic self, and or comparable to it, like maybe edging in that tier, essentially being a stopgap between Arthur and destroying Leona's thing, erasing all other races from the world, then the best way to do it, in my mind, would be saying Meliodas' body, once again, remembers the state of true magic, and he trains to achieve it. And who knows? He could, we don't know how old Meliodas was when he got the immortality curse. I don't think that's ever specified. So he could literally, it would suck. But considering Elizabeth is going to die in a regular human lifespan, he doesn't have much longer to live. He wouldn't have much to live for anyway. He could chop off or sacrifice a century or two in purgatory. We know that Hawk, actually, who knows? Now I think about it, because Merlin, so maybe he probably doesn't even have access anymore. Because I'm pretty sure the only reason Hawk went into purgatory was because Merlin let him do it. I don't think Hawk did that himself, but I may be misremembering that. But if Meliodas has any way to hop into purgatory, on top of the fact that his body likely remembers what it's like being in the true magic state, I could definitely see Meliodas training to the point that he is relative to his true magic self. And that doesn't have to be in base, right? You don't have to say that, oh, base Meliodas is stronger than his post-true magic self. Like, you don't have to say all that. You could literally just say Meliodas in assault mode after 16 years of training and his body remembering what it's like to be in that state is now as strong as his true magic self. I'd be cool with that. I know for a fact, if he has that same drip that he had in the last chapter and in the Cath vision, I know assault mode King Meliodas is gonna look heat. He's a drip. Like, in terms of sheer drip, side tangent, I know King Meliodas is my favorite outfit of his. I'm definitely gonna make a whole Meliodas outfit tier list, but I don't think anything's gonna come close. King Drip Diotis, like, come on now, that man's different. But in terms of power, I think that's where he'll be around. I think one way or another, he's going to be around his true magic self, because that's the only feasible way I could keep Arthur. Like, it's the only way all the Arthur theories work for why he hasn't invaded Leonis. Because if worst comes to worst, he would have dropped in there the moment he could. He would. He hates, for some reason now, he hates all the other races permanently, hardcore. So he would do it if he could, but I think Meliodas is in that power range. Now, what would be the range Meliodas would be in? So either Nakaba keeps up the trend where Meliodas will, actually, now I think about it, that would just make base Meliodas stronger than his post-resurrection, not post-resurrection. That would make King Meliodas stronger than his assault mode post-True Magic Lost self, which, once again, could be fine. I think that's like the lowest end is just saying he's as strong as he was 16 years ago. And I'll admit, I'm not the coolest with that. I think that'd be kind of lame. It would be kind of lame, and it wouldn't make sense for Arthur to hold back. Like, he wouldn't be like, whoa, we got a problem over here. If it was just like the Meliodas he knew from 16 years ago is around that same level of strength. I know that Meliodas is still a monster, but he's not. I don't think base Meliodas or even assault mode resurrection Meliodas. I keep saying resurrection, assault mode post purg Meliodas. I don't think he's like chaos tier threat. I definitely think he needs true magic to even stand a chance against chaos, that chaos level of power. So that's the lowest end though. He's just as strong as he was 16 years ago because he's been too busy running the kingdom. He hasn't trained, and he trusts Merlin to keep an eye on Arthur. However, say Meliodas is somewhat cautious, but he's holding off a little bit. He remembers how strong he was in true magic and works towards it, but then can't achieve it. So he ends up training in his spare time as much as he can, maybe calling up Bonding King for a couple sparring sessions, the left and right, maybe telling Diane to draw his dance in the background so he could throw some hands with her, throw some paws, the light stuff, the usual work, maybe having Bond steal his strength a little bit to have an even fight, good stuff like that, good juicy stuff like that. I'd appreciate that. But then it's just not enough. So like he could be like under his true magic self while in his strongest state. Like just that he's almost at the pinnacle, but he's weaker than his true magic self when he's at that state, when he's in assault mode, essentially. Then you could have a slightly more generous view, like say Meliodas, he trained that little extra bit harder, he sparred with even Elizabeth for a little bit, he's just doing all the good stuff, right? Then the most fair, I'd say, power rating he would be is an equal to his true magic self while in assault mode. In his strongest state, he achieved his true magic point. Then a slightly more generous interpretation is that, hey, he spent a couple years in purgatory, trying to shave off that demon lifespan so he doesn't outlive Elizabeth by too long. And then he ends up training, and then in his assault mode state, he's stronger than his true magic self, but not to such an insane degree that it's like absurd. Then getting a little bit more generous to the point of slight absurdity, I'd say, is that he's as strong as his true magic self in around Demon Mark. That would be it'd be a lot, but hey, why not? And then being the ultimate amount of, well, generous, nice, sloppy, like if we're just and following the idea that Nagaba has established essentially throughout his previous narrative, that he should be stronger than his strongest previous form, then base Meliodas would be equal to or superior to true magic Meliodas through full usage of his training regimen, full usage of his demon lifespan, full uses of purgatory, all of his training partners, all of his sparring partners, remembrance of his own biodata, trains to that state. And then that's why Arthur considers him enough of a threat that he's like, hey, I gotta seal this dude. Like, I'm not even gonna bother throwing hands with him. I have to seal this man. Like, if I throw hands with him, I won't die because I'm a being beyond life and death himself. But if he gets his hands on me, he can seal me. Like, it would be cool if the two had like surpassed the highest pinnacle of power from the previous series, had a really good fight, and essentially the fight came down to who seals who first. Like, Arthur would essentially have the Coffin of Eternal Darkness fully charged, like rotating around him in the midst of the fight. Meanwhile, Meliodas would be consistently trying to like use his darkness seal on him. Like, that would be really, really cool. Then you could have Meliodas go into assault mode, and then Arthur revealed like he's like way stronger than what Chaos initially was and stuff like that. Like, that would be a cool way. I think it would give due respect to both characters, but obviously easy due respect to just having Meliodas be equal to his previous self in his strongest state. But there we go. They're my interpretations. That's how if you put a pencil to my head and was like, hey, do it or I draw on your forehead, I'd have to say the most reasonable place I think Nagaba would put him is equal to his true magic self in his strongest state through training and stuff like that. That's what I think Nagaba will put him at, because obviously Meliodas isn't the main character anymore. This isn't Meliodas' story, so he's meant to die to Arthur, or at least lose to Arthur, be sealed by him, whatever you want to say. However, if Nagaba wants to hype Arthur up even more, really give our knights like this insane power cliff, and this would work if the whole idea that the knights, or at least Lance, is as strong as an EOS Sin, like Tristan and Lance are strong as EOS Sins, and he really could just like slot Meliodas up so he's stronger than his true magic self in base, and then Arthur still beats him. Now that would be insanely hype. It would give our knights a way bigger journey to cross before they could come to Arthur. But those are my thoughts. That's the highest. You know what the lowest is. Please tell me what you think in the comment section down below. Where do you think Nagaba is going to put Meliodas? Think he's going to be nice to him? You think he's going to be mean? You think he's going to be somewhere in between? Tell me all that in the comment section down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and hit that little notification bell so you don't miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do have a Patreon down below, and I'd appreciate any support you're willing to give. Now, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is that guy with the pencil, writing off.